Welcome to the Cesspools, a look back. And on this edition, we're going to discuss one of my favorite childhood bands, Coal Chamber. Coal Chamber was an American nu metal band formed in Los Angeles, California in 1994. Their most noted lineup was Des Fafara, lead vocals, and in late 1994, Dino Cazares of Fear Factory championed a demo tape by Coal Chamber, causing a huge local stir with gigs at the Roxy Theater and Whiskey A Go-Go, eventually leading Roadrunner Records to offering them a band contract. And nowadays, Dino is actually, I think, one of the heads of A&R at Roadrunner. Fafara dropped out of the band quite suddenly due to disagreements with his wife. Does that sound familiar out there? Yeah, that's how it is. About the band. In spring of 1995, Dez reunited with Coal Chamber, which ended his marriage, but revitalized the band. With the renewed sense of energy, Coal Chamber was about to regain their deal with Roadrunner, and that was at the end of 1995. Miguel Rascon, guitars, keyboards, and backing vocals, and he was in a band with Des Fafara before Coal Chamber. Raina Foss, bassist, 94 to 2002. She was born in Atlanta, and she played on the first two Coal Chamber albums before leaving to start a family with her husband, the Seven Dust drummer Morgan Rose. This relationship caused tension within the band, as Coal Chamber and Seven Dust were in something of a rivalry. Even when they ended up touring together in 2013, after the rivalry was supposedly put to bed, they still badmouthed each other in interviews, and that was after she was divorced from the guy. So it must have been, little tempers flaring. After she became pregnant, it was then necessary that another bass player be on tour, a role that was filled by Nadia Pulin. The drummer of Coal Chamber, and his mom didn't do him any favors, Mike Cox. Mikey and his brother Nathan both tried to join the band, with Mikey winning out. All was not lost for Nathan, though. He directed this video along with dozens of others for bands including Steel Panther, Suicide Silence, Black Veil Brides, Marilyn Manson, and Linkin Park. Mikey Cox is so dedicated to drumming that he named his son after a noise a drum makes. His kid is called Bash. Now we dive in a little bit more into the former frontman of Coal Chamber, Des Fafara.
According to Wikipedia, Fafara is of Portuguese and Sicilian descent. His father, Tiger Fafara, and his late uncle, Stanley Fafara, were child actors on the Leave It to Beaver television sitcom. Fafara's wife is named Anastasia, and she appears on the cover of the second Coal Chamber album, Chamber Music. Fafara adopted the nickname Dez in honor of Dez Cadena, vocalist and guitarist for Black Flag, and an early influence on Fafara. Fafara has appeared on more than 12 soundtrack records, including Scream 3 the album, which also went gold. He also collaborated with Ozzy Osbourne for a remake of Shock the Monkey, a song originally by Peter Gabriel that was released on the Coal Chamber album, Chamber Music. This song propelled this record to debut 22 on the Billboard charts upon its release. Fafara got his first tattoo at the age of 16. He has a large assortment of them, including a tribal tattoo on his chin, an assortment of Mayan Aztec tattoos on his chest and left arm, the Devil Driver logo on his upper arm and face, and the Coal Chamber logo on his forearm. He also has a tattoo reading Dez on his knuckles. In 2019, Fafara extended the tribal tattoo on his chin, down his neck and jawline. This new edition featured vibrant colors and a range of Mayan Aztec styles. Currently, Fafara, as part of Devil Driver, has released 7 studio albums.
All right, now we move on to recapping every album Coal Chamber released. In 1996, Coal Chamber played in the first ever Ozfest, and then on February 11th, 1997, they released their debut album. The album has been certified gold with in excess of over 500,000 copies sold, and it is the band's most successful album. That's pretty crazy that before your debut, you get to go on Ozfest first. Second stage, but it doesn't matter. That is still an amazing opportunity.
Massive exposure.
Three singles were released on this album. Loco, which is the huge one. Big Truck and Sway. All of those are pretty big, but as a kid, Loco really set everything off, and they did well. Rate Your Music, user review.
Simple riffs, heavy on bass, very emotional and a little bit psycho. That's straight new metal stuff from the prime time of that genre. Album is surprisingly good on its own conditions. Cool stuff.
All right, so I came across this next review, and I'm only leaving it in because of how laughable it is.
This band and album fall into many typical nu metal trappings. For example, they follow the golden unwritten rule of nu metal. Always have an extremely long closing track which contains a hidden song.
That's true, though. Bands did do that. Don't get me wrong.
That wasn't just nu metal that did that.
No, I mean, Tool you're not going to
bands.
call nu metal. They
No.
did it.
Yeah. Cold Chamber have always included a female in their band, an obvious marketing ploy. One of many nu metal marketing gimmicks, just like how Slipknot wear costumes and Seven Dust have a Negro singer to get more attention.
How stupid is that review?
That's pretty stupid.
It's just dumb as shit. A lot of people had females in their band.
Oh, yeah, White Zombie.
If they're capable, guess what? They make the band.
Exactly.
These slots aren't usually, there's several people trying out for them and stuff. You know what I mean? I just love that review.
Yeah.
Seven Dust had a Negro singer.
Yeah, how very narrow scope.
Seven Dust singer's fucking awesome. Dude.
He's great. Well, and one of my favorite bands, Killswitch Engage, was because of Howard Jones.
Yeah.
Who just happened to be black.
And you can't tell from the music.
No, and
If you never saw that band, you couldn't pinpoint that.
No, he's a great singer, and I don't care the fact that he's black or white. You know what the fuck
It's just
ever.
funny. This is a great review. I just
retard.
laughed at it. Chamber Music is the second studio album from the band Cold Chamber. With this record, Cold Chamber purposely distanced their sound from that of Korn and White Zombie, who they are often compared to because of the prominent influence on Cold Chamber's debut album. Many of the songs on Chamber Music are notably more melodic than of its predecessor and could perhaps make it the group's most accessible record. Their cover of Peter Gabriel's Shock the Monkey featured guest vocals by Ozzy Osbourne, and that helped launch the band into mainstream music as well. A music video was produced for Shock the Monkey, and the song received notable radio airplay for a time. The album sold over 270,000 copies in the United States alone. With the bit of commercial success Cold Chamber received after Chamber Music, the band toured on headlining and festival tours. The band managed to catch the attention of Ozzy Osbourne's wife, Sharon Osbourne, who became their manager. And Wikipedia kind of mentions the big Howard Stern story about how Cold Chamber was on tour with Insane Clown Posse, who were big at the time. And supposedly the tour was struggling because of Cold Chamber. Tickets weren't selling. People wanted refunds after seeing Cold Chamber. They were being booed on stage. So ICP dropped them from the tour, but they said, it was because of equipment failure. Well, after they got on Howard Stern, I guess ICP were guests. I guess Sharon Osbourne was guests. And they were like, well, she was like, we're going to sue you for breach of contract. I don't know whatever came of that, but it's curious that Cold Chamber was ever on an ICP tour, but that they were the problem. Who knows? Interesting story, though. The Rate Your Music user review.
Their second effort, which has a more defined sound to it, more toned down but still heavy as spooky core goes. A redone version of Not Living, as well as guest vocals from the great Ozzy Osbourne covering Shock the Monkey. A good follow-up to their first effort.
Dark Days is the third studio album by American nu metal band Cold Chamber. It was recorded in 2001 and released in May of 2002. It's actually my favorite album from them. Dark Days is often regarded as the band's most aggressive and heaviest album, while past Cold Chamber albums had softer songs scattered throughout them. Dark Days stays mostly aggressive all the way through. Dark Days mostly combines the styles from the band's debut album with their second album, mixing nu metal elements with the gothic metal elements from each record. We go to a Rate Your Music user review.
At a time where Cold Chamber were on the verge of chaos, where Dez became almost a dictator, Reina was MIA due to pregnancy and her relationship with Morgan Rose of Seven Dust, Cold Chamber releases obviously their last album. Totally different than the previous work as they incorporate the goth sound a little more, and the Korn wannabe label is lifted more off of them. However, there is a little variety. Cold Chamber tend to still put out some standout tracks like Fiend, the lead single in Something Told Me.
It was announced that Cold Chamber had broken up after an on-stage altercation between Fafara and Rascone during a show in Lubbock, Texas. They had been fighting verbally before the show and continued to fight on stage, with Rascone hitting Fafaro in the head with the headstock of his guitar. Fafaro announced, "This is the last Cold Chamber show ever," and stormed off stage. The band attempted to continue the show, with Rascone singing vocals, but soon stopped the show altogether. That sounds like a shitstorm right there. Mike Cox demolished his drum kit before storming off stage. The band managed to patch things up long enough for an appearance on Last Call with Carson Daly, and then a summer tour. Dez Fafara said the band was permanently broken up and went on to do vocals for Devil Driver. When Fafara was with Devil Driver, he said that people in Cold Chamber used to stay up partying for days on end and then would make decisions that didn't make any sense at all. My thing has always been wine and weed, and then you've got the absolute opposite of that, and that's what I had to be around constantly on a daily basis for 7 years. It was a bad situation, and I had to get the fuck away. In another interview, he said there was a strategic element to him leaving the band. Quote, "I realized that every night I was on stage with a microphone in my hand, I was putting money in the drug addict members' pockets, which led to them putting drugs in their hands. Once we stopped going on stage as Cold Chamber, their money ran out, their fame ran out, and they eventually had to get clean." End quote. Little arrogant, probably some truth. Interesting, though.
Dictator.
Yeah, that's the dictator.
He's a dictator.
In September of 2011, Fafara, Cox, and Rascone officially reformed the band, but that was just a tour. And then October of 2013, the band signed to Napalm Records and started to work on a new album. And finally, Rivals is the fourth and final studio album by the band Cold Chamber. The album was released on May 19th of 2015. Described as groove metal and nu metal, Rivals has been compared to all of the previous Cold Chamber albums, being described as most similar to the band's third album, Dark Days. The album Rivals shows Cold Chamber moving away from their gothic sound. I listened to this today. I enjoyed it. It was actually pretty good. I really thought it was a reason not to break up. It was good. So here's a Rate Your Music user review.
Rivals pretty much starts at where the previous album left off, containing mostly grooving riffs, chugging bass, pulsing drums, and the occasional Korn-esque guitar work. In fact, this album shares many similarities with Devil Driver, with Fafara mostly singing with his aggressive vocals, and the aforementioned grooving riffs are used the most throughout the album. The first song released and the opening song, I Owe You Nothing, starts out the album really well. It sets the tone of the album, having chugging guitar and pulsing drums. Most of the songs follow the same pattern, but some are more memorable than others. Probably my favorite is Suffer in Silence, which features Ministry's Al Jurgensen on vocals. While the album may stay the same for the most part, I find it impossible to not get into the crunching groove of the whole album. They may be short, but they are certainly memorable. Overall, Rivals is an excellent return for Cold Chamber. Dark Days was my favorite album from them, but I think Rivals has become my favorite. It takes all the previous album did so well and adding in a few new things to spice it up. Welcome back, Cold Chamber. I'm excited for what they have coming next.
Sorry, buddy. They've got nothing coming next. In July of 2018, Fafara officially announced that Cold Chamber is not coming back.